everyone. So today we are going to really dig into what it means to um, serve yourself well when it comes down to self-care. Because I think sometimes we forget that self-care is all about advocating for yourself, right? And so you are truly your biggest cheerleader, right? You are your own fan club. You're your own um, boss. You're your own leader. And I think that is truly important to really think about when you're going into the world, especially, in your personal and private, your personal and professional lives. Um, as black women, because that's who we are, right? That's who I am, a black woman. Sometimes when we go into various spaces, um, we're having to contend with micro and macro aggressions. And I just want to put it out there that it's truly that's um, racism, right? Anti-blackness, to just really put that language out there, right? In that we're having sometimes we deal with gossip, or sometimes we're being lowballed for a salary, or sometimes we're being overworked, right? Or we're being put on diversity and equity initiatives, or we're being told that, hey, you need to produce more and more and more. Hey, can you work this shift? Or hey, can you produce? And you know that your value, right? And no one knows your value better than you know your value. And so it's important that when we're thinking about self-care, that it's not just when we are wanting to rest. It's not just when we are wanting to kick back and chill, right? Self-care means, advocating for yourself on the job, advocating for yourself in your private relationships, advocating for yourself anywhere in any space, right? Because when you're putting yourself first, when you are the center of your universe, your life, then you yourself have to understand, hey, what are my own personal values? What are my principles? What do I believe? How do I feel about this? What are my needs and my wants? Right? Because those things must come first, right? Because when you don't put yourself first, when you're not your biggest cheerleader, right, then who else will be? And it's important that we do have mentors, that we have someone to go to, friends, family members, right? That we can extend our questions to if we need a helping hand, if we need an ear to listen to us, to kind of give us, some guidance in those sticky situations. But truly and fundamentally, you should be your own biggest advocate. You should be the one that is like, you know what, I'm not going to deal with this. I'm not going to allow this to continue, and this is not going to continue, and this is what I am going to do. And you make your move, right? For instance, there's a podcast that I listened to yesterday. I'm not sure what's the name of it is. It's just a random podcast that I came upon. It's a career-based podcast, centered centered on black women, right? And so the podcast hostess, she stated that she worked at a job for so many years, and she was ready to become her own boss. She was wanting to become self-employed, to build her own business, and she put in a 4-week notice, right? So instead of 2 weeks, she put in 4 weeks. And at this particular job, she did well. She advanced the company in a variety of ways. She really added to the company, right? She added value to the company. And so she decided to go on a 2-week vacation, and so what ended up happening is something happened. The director at her company had an issue with her, her wanting to leave, right? And so, the director at that position was like, no, we're not going to pay you for the 2 weeks that you were off on vacation when they should have. And so she ended up going to the CEO of the company to address it instead of going back and forth with the director that was over her supervisor. So she went directly to the person in charge to say, hey, this is what happened and I'm not okay with it. And it was very much inappropriate. And this needs to be addressed. And it was addressed, right? And she ended up getting her full pay for those 2 weeks. And so when I talk about advocating, I'm talking about in all ways, right? In all ways. That can even extend to our private and personal lives. So it can be, hey, you know what? I'm not feeling okay with, what you're doing. It's not okay with me, and I prefer that you stop doing it because it's something that I'm not okay with, right? And if the person does not respect your boundaries, then that's when you move into saying, hey, I told you this is how I feel, and this is not what I want. And since you don't respect me and my boundaries, then I have to go, right? Or I have to terminate, or I have to leave this friendship or relationship because this is not what I believe in. This is not who I am. This is not what I'm going to put up with. And I think sometimes it's very hard, especially when you're dealing with, a partner, or you're dealing with a family member, right, or a close family friend. It can be very hard because you don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but at the same time, what did I say? Right? You are the center of your own life. And what you need and what you want should come first. Right? People may say, oh, that's very selfish, or oh, that's very narcissistic. No, it's not. You're doing what is best for you, because who is going to do what's best for you better than you? No one else. No, I mean, absolutely no one else. Right? I remember I was in a relationship a few years back, and it was just not the right relationship for me. A lot of things happened, a lot of painful things happened, a lot of hurtful things occurred. And it came to a point that, I was like, this is not who I am. This is not what I want for myself. And just like a company, I am moving in a different direction. Right? And it hurts, right? And it's hard because, if you've been with someone for so long, even a company, right? You know the people, you know how they are, you know the expectations, you know how things go, right? And sometimes things can become very routine, and you kind of go with it after a while. But when you are your own best advocate, you have to say, this is who I am. And sometimes that means saying that to yourself in the mirror, or saying it out loud. This is not who I am, but this is who I want to be, or this is who I know I can be. Or, you have to sometimes put yourself in check, right? Put yourself in a timeout. Because, sometimes we just keep rolling and rolling and rolling and rolling and rolling as if, things are going to get better when we know things are not going to get better, right? And that's very scary to change things up, to say, hey, it's been 20 years and it's time for me to go. Sometimes that's hard to do, because then you're like, okay, what do I do now? Where do I go? But the question is, who do you want to be? What do you want to be? And can you be that in your current situation? And is that going to make you happy? Right? Because so many times we feel like, I owe it to someone else if I do this, or I owe it to my company or to this partner if I stay. Because what will they do without me? Right? That's the question that we always tend to ask. What will they do without me? Well, the question you should be asking is, are you happy where you're at? Right? Are you happy where you're at? And sometimes not knowing what's on the other side of the hill can be very scary, but at least you know you're not where you're at right now. Right? At least you know that you're not where you're at right now. Because where you're at right now is a dark place, a scary place, a lonely place, a painful place. It's a place that you know you shouldn't be, but sometimes things happen, right? And that's just how life is. We have difficulties. We sometimes fall down, but we have to get back up. And that's what I did. I mean, I went through a painful relationship, super, super, super painful. But I grew from it, and I hated that I had to go through it. But you learn because it came a point that I had to advocate for myself and say I can no longer agree with what is going on. I can no longer accept the conditions of this relationship. It's not going to work for me. It's because I'm tired. And once you get to the point of being fed up and you're tired, then that's when you kind of figure out, you know what, it's time to move on. But it's usually when we're fed up that we move on, right? It's usually when we get to that breaking point that we say, hey, I can't do it anymore. I remember I was working at this one college, and I enjoyed my job, but I did not enjoy the people around me. There's a lot of things that I was not in agreement to. In agreement to, and there was it's a lot of things that I was just truly shocked by, especially in a religious-based institution. Very shocked, very it was just a lot of xenophobia. There was a lot of racism. You had classism, and I was like, no, I can't do this because this is not who I am, right? This is not who I am, and I'm not going to surround myself by people that are like this, right? And that and we ourselves, we have to be honest with ourselves and who we are, right? Because sometimes we can be in a sticky situation, right? Maybe you need money, maybe you don't have anywhere else to go, and so we have to figure out how can I advocate for myself in a way that is safe, in a way that is smart, in a way that is strategic and makes sense, right? And so when you're making the moves that you're making, that being changing a job, that being leaving a relationship, think about your exit plan, right? Think about your next step, right? What am I going to do after this? Have I saved money to have another home? Have I saved money to leave this current job, right? What is your plan? Because you can't just leave without a plan. Sometimes you can't, right? But it's more strategic if you have a plan before you go, right? So think about that, right? And being your own best advocate, you have to do things that make sense for you. Right? You know your circumstances, you know what you're going through, you know what all the variables are in your particular situation. So, do what is best for you. I can't tell you what's best for you because I'm not you. But what I can say is that when you start advocating for yourself and you know your worth, then you will no longer feel like you owe someone an explanation for why you choose to leave. Especially if it was toxic and it was highly harmful and inappropriate. You don't owe anyone an explanation. You don't. And I had a situation just like that. I left a situation because I felt like it did not serve me and who I am. And someone tried to come back and say, hey, what's going on? Why did you make this decision? I can change this or I can change that. And it's not about you changing because I'm over it. You can't convince me to go back to what was bad. You can't convince me you can't make me feel like what happened, what you're offering is okay, because it's not. Being your own advocate means you gotta be brutally honest with you. You don't have to talk to anyone about what you're going through. You don't have to talk to anyone. You don't need to talk to anyone about the choice that you're going to make unless you want to, right? But being your own advocate, being your own person, you have to figure out what you need for you. Because no one really knows what you need for you but you. Right? And if you need professional help, get professional help. Right? But no one